Cayce. Next to me is Margaret Fisher. She is the coroner for Lexington County. Since our last briefing this morning, we have had several developments to share with you. It is with extremely heavy hearts that we are announcing that we have found a body that the coroner has identified as Faye Marie Swetlik. We are now treating this case as a homicide. As this community has been working hard to find Faye and bring her home safely, we wanted you to know as soon as possible. At this time, no arrests have been made. You need to know that this is a fluid investigation and that we are working diligently on it. We also need to inform you that during the course of our investigation, a deceased male was located in the Churchill Heights neighborhood. That investigation has just begun. At this time, we feel there is no danger to the community. We will continue to provide more information as it becomes available. We will not be taking questions. Thank you.
No danger to the community. We were told, Darcy, at 10:45 there would be no new update today unless there were some new developments, and this is certainly a sad and tragic development in this case.
It is. For those of you who are just joining us, a quote from Director Snellgrove. He said, "It is with extremely heavy hearts that we have found the body of Faye Marie Swetlik, 6 years old, a first grader in school. She's been missing since Monday afternoon. Her mother called police when Faye got off the school bus and allegedly played in her front yard for a while and then disappeared. As JR just mentioned, that deceased male was located in her neighborhood, the Churchill Heights neighborhood. But outside of that, law enforcement has not drawn a parallel between that male's body being found and Faye's body.
This is a story that has gripped the Midlands and, in fact, the entire state and part of the country now, because the story has gone national since little Faye went missing on Monday. A lot of people have a lot of interest in the story, Darcy, and certainly a lot of people were hoping for a better outcome than we got today. Notification that Faye's body has been found. Again, no questions given by the media, no questions taken by the director of the Cayce Public Safety Department. This is a live look outside the neighborhood, and early this morning, I guess about an hour and a half ago, they actually put those cars there at the Churchill Heights neighborhood, Darcy, blocking all traffic from entering the neighborhood, correct?
They did this morning. We know that there have been more than 250 law enforcement officers working to locate Faye since she disappeared on Monday. A multi-agency investigation, including everything from SLED, Lexington County Police Department, to the FBI, including but not limited to those law enforcement agencies. That 10:45 update this afternoon with Sergeant Evan Antley. The breaking news out of that update 3 hours ago was that the public was very instrumental in locating or helping to locate the occupants of two of the vehicles, one of the vehicles that they had released photos of just yesterday, and they were still working to determine who was in that other vehicle. But we did not get any additional information about whether or not law enforcement has been able to identify the people who were in that car.
All right, so the breaking news this hour, two bodies have been found. Two bodies found, that of Faye Marie Swetlik and a man also found dead in that same neighborhood. Jacob Reynolds is standing by. He's been on this story from the very beginning. He's joining us with more on these new developments. Jacob?
JR, a very emotional Cayce Department of Public Safety Director Byron Snellgrove telling the room that they have found the body of 6-year-old Faye Swetlik. He didn't release a lot of details. He said the investigation is still ongoing. They've not made any arrests at this time. And then at the end of that press conference, he did announce, like you've been saying, They found another body of a deceased male in the Churchill Heights neighborhood. He said that investigation was just beginning. He said they were not going to take any questions. We have no idea at this time if those are connected or if they were found at the same place. So there is a lot we do not know right now, but a heartbreaking development in this story. 4 days after she was reporting missing, 6-year-old Faye Swetlik, her body has been found by law enforcement. And at the scene over at Churchill Heights, we had noticed a lot of law enforcement activity this morning and into the early afternoon. The roadway in was completely blocked. That was not how it looked yesterday. They had law enforcement vehicles with their lights on blocking that entire entryway. Another one of our reporters had heard from a resident that he could not get to his house in the neighborhood and was not told when he would be allowed to return. We saw another group of vehicles turn into that neighborhood right after the press conference earlier this morning had ended, so we don't know if all of that is related. There, of course, was also activity we notated last night, so without being able to ask questions, we still don't know a lot of the information about what's going on here, but once again, a very heartbreaking development. 6-year-old Faye Swetlik, her body found. He did not specify where exactly that body was found. Another deceased male also found in the Churchill Heights neighborhood. They said that investigation was beginning, and that at this time we do not know if those are connected. J.R., Darcy?
Right, Jacob, but the Director Snellgrove said that this time they do not believe there is any danger to the community. So a lot of people out there, they're going to just automatically think, okay, if there's no danger to the community, what's the deal here? We have a dead child we've been looking for since Monday, and now we have a deceased male in the very same neighborhood. A lot of people are going to be putting 2 and 2 together, trying to come up with 4 this afternoon.
And JR, I can't speak to that. There's a lot we don't know right now. Just going off what the director said, he had said the investigation into Faye Swetlik's recovery was ongoing, and of course the investigation into this deceased man is just beginning. Like we said, a very emotional director when he began this press conference. Earlier this morning they had announced that they did talk to one of the cars that they were looking for. They were still looking to talk to the other one. We do not know at this time if that is related to information they got. At this time, really all we know is what we've seen and what we just heard from the director, that increased law enforcement activity in the neighborhood throughout the morning, and then of course the news you heard about Faye's body being found, and then of course this other man's body that we really don't have any details about.
Jacob, we're going to take a break from you for just a second. For anybody who is just joining us now for this breaking news, if you were not with us in the last 10 minutes, you have not heard from Director Snellgrove, the Cayce Public Safety Director, on how they found Faye's body and what he had to say about this recent development. Let's listen in.
Developments to share with you. It is with extremely heavy hearts that we are announcing that we have found the body that the coroner has identified as Faye Marie Swetlik. We are now treating this case as a homicide. As this community has been working hard to find Faye and bring her home safely, we wanted you to know as soon as possible. At this time, no arrests have been made. You need to know that this is a fluid investigation and that we are working diligently on it. We also need to inform you that during the course of our investigation, a deceased male was located in the Churchill Heights neighborhood. That investigation has just begun. At this time, we feel there is no danger to the community. We will continue to provide more information as it becomes available. We will not be taking questions. Thank you.
All right, again, that was the Director of Cayce Public Safety, Byron Snellgrove, just moments ago announcing that the body of Faye Marie Swetlik has been found. This investigation is now a homicide investigation, but the body of a man also found in connection with this investigation, Darcy.
Director Snellgrove says there's no danger to the community, and as you just mentioned, JR, they are treating this as a homicide, but there have been no arrests made. Obviously, this is not the outcome any of us expected. We were all hoping that this little girl would come home safely to her family.
Yeah.
It is heartbreaking that this search has ended this way, and I don't know how the community recovers from something like this.
You know, yesterday when they said they had expanded the search, when they said, well, we're expanding the search now. We're taking it outside the actual neighborhood, closer out to the interstate, closer to the creek. I know you and I talked off the air about that. There was a lot of speculation about why they would do that. Well, they have gone to these homes door to door. They've knocked on them. They've gone inside homes. They've questioned the neighbors. They have been doing a thorough investigation since Monday when this child was missing. So yesterday when they said, well, we're expanding the search area, I think a lot of people thought, okay, now they're thinking perhaps she wandered away. Maybe she's lost in the woods out toward the interstate. Perhaps she is just waiting to be found, crying, doesn't know where she is. And maybe that's why they've expanded the search. But a lot of things have happened in the last several hours. This investigation has taken a complete 180. And so instead of expanding the search out toward that area, they researched the neighborhood yesterday. They kicked all the media out, you may recall, kicked all the media out. And then this morning, a flurry of activity, and now we know why.
News 19's Nick Jones is going to continue our team coverage. He's right outside of the Churchill Heights neighborhood where Faye lived. And Nick, I know over the last 3 days you've had an opportunity not only to speak with residents, but business owners in that community who were all hoping for the same thing that we were, and that is that Faye would have been found safely.
Yeah, a lot of the members in the community here in Cayce, Springdale, West Columbia, they're most certainly heartbroken after finding out the news of the discovery of the body for the missing 6-year-old. And as you heard Director Snellgrove mention, they are continuing this investigation, and right now they're still blocking off the entrance here to the Churchill Heights neighborhood. Nobody's able to get in. We've seen several cars come through the neighborhood as well, or try to get to their homes, but they have not been able to do so at this time. So law enforcement is still here. A lot of people are here in this area, but this has been a very tough situation for this entire community. I've been speaking with various business owners here in the area, and I know this morning I was talking to Zesto's, their owner. They've been making some meals for the law enforcement here in this area who's been here investigating, trying to find the missing 6-year-old, and we've talked to other business owners who've been putting out signs everywhere trying to find her, but of course, after finding this news, the community is definitely heartbroken finding out what happened here today.
All right, Nick Jones out the neighborhood. Again, we want to mention something here. Because the investigators didn't take any questions a few moments ago, we don't know exactly how these two deceased are related. We know that Faye Marie Swetlik, her body's found. This is a homicide investigation. During the course of the investigation, the director says they found a deceased male. No danger to the community, no arrests have been made right now. So again, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, there's going to be a lot of questions here. And a lot of people are going to be looking for answers we just don't have right now. If you go on social media right now, I'm sure it's a flurry of activity about this case. A lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people are saying, well, this is what happened, and this is what happened, and this is what happened. We don't know exactly what happened because the director wouldn't take any questions. Will we find out what happened? Yes. But we can't assume and we can't make any speculation as to exactly what happened. We're waiting for some answers from the proper authorities in this investigation.
News 19's Jacob Reynolds is in that area where the press conference just wrapped up. And Jacob, I know over the last several days that you've been at each of these press conferences. If I'm not wrong, I think that we've only heard from the director one other time. All of the other press conferences have been handled by Sergeant Evan Antley, who is the public information officer for the Cayce Department of Public Safety. But just being in the room today when this announcement was made, can you give us a feel for the reaction from the community and law enforcement, and even the journalists who have been covering this story for the last several days?
Yeah, Darcy, I mean, when we knew there was a press conference at 10:45 this morning, that was different from the daily press conferences we had been told would be happening yesterday at 11:45, but they explained that was because the vice president was going to be in town. They wanted to move it earlier, and then once we had that press conference at 10:45, at one point they were asked, is this still a search operation? Is it a recovery operation? And they said it was still an active search to try to bring Faye Swetlik home, but then, you know, there was kind of a feeling, a tenseness, a sadness when they said there would be another press conference at 1. They made that announcement at around 12:40. A lot of us were at the scene, actually, got in cars to come back over here, and we knew it would be, you know, some sort of major update, especially because it was coming so closely after that one at 10:45. Of course, you hope for the best, and you know, you prepare for the worst. And unfortunately, like you heard from Director Snellgrove, with that emotion in his voice having to pause a little bit, he announced that they had recovered the body of this missing 6-year-old Faye Swetlik. And you know, you could see on the faces of law enforcement, especially the coroner standing behind him, also upset. The director had only talked at one of the press conferences I'd been at on Tuesday night, kind of expressing that urgency to get tips, to get video, things like that, and then otherwise they had let Sergeant Antley do these press conferences, and speaking to kind of knowing we were headed for some sort of major update. I was told we were waiting earlier for kind of that delay. We were waiting for Director Snellgrove to come and give this update. And just kind of going back to that 10:45 a.m. press conference, the one that was earlier today, you know, they had provided updates. It seemed like it was going to be another day of searching. They said, you know, their investigators were out even a little bit further from that search area. They were still calling it a search, not a recovery. They were very clear on that point. They said they wanted, you know, to bring this little girl home. And then I think it caught everyone a little bit off guard when that announcement was made right at around 12:40 that they were going to have another press conference at 1 o'clock. And of course, you know, now we know why. And it is just, you know, not what anyone out here in the conversations you have with these law enforcement officers, whether they're supposed to talk to media or not, you know, the conversation is obviously no one ever is ready for this outcome. It catches everyone by surprise. And I think you heard, you know, that in Director Snellgrove's voice when we just played back the press conference, the emotion he had of making that announcement.
All right, Jacob, if we can, Adam, I'd like, if we can, take a look at the neighborhood, Churchill Heights neighborhood, because there's some activity there as far as the law enforcement officers. No one is being allowed in the neighborhood or out at the moment because they have the exit blocked as well, Darcy. I know earlier I saw the entrance was blocked, but now I'm noticing they've got the exit blocked as well. So nobody in or out of that neighborhood at this hour.
This is one of those stories that you need your teams in multiple locations. And so WLTX has team coverage. We have reporters across Lexington County making sure that we're not going to miss an angle of this. But you can only imagine how difficult it is for everyone in that neighborhood. From what we've heard from our reporters who are on the ground talking with neighbors every day, it is a tight-knit community, and we are just searching for words. And I say this with all transparency. As a mother, this is heartbreaking to see this end to this story.
Again, as we take this live look at the entrance of the Churchill Heights neighborhood, we've just saw another law enforcement, a state trooper actually just fly by the scene, probably on an unrelated call. But again, we're not sure how long the neighborhood's going to be closed to traffic today, or for that matter, letting anybody out. We do know that school dismisses, the elementary school dismisses at 2:30. And
what we're learning now is that the school, because we think about Faye's community,
right,
but we also have to think about the community at school. And so now the school has sent out a voicemail message in regards to this development. And I believe we have that voicemail message that's gone out to students and their parents at Faye's school. Let's listen in.
We know how hard something like this is, even for adults to understand. This letter contains some general suggestions about how you can help your child. In general, after something like this, children need to know that they are safe and that their home is safe. Remember, too, that children look to the adults in their lives, watch how they handle grief and loss, and take their cues from you as they approach difficult situations like this. If you do discuss the death, use very simple language and ideas, as death is a very hard concept for young children to grasp. Listed below are a few general strategies you may choose to use to talk with your child about death. Give honest, brief explanations. Avoid over-answering questions. Keep responses at the child's level of understanding. Listen and hug. Use a calm, reassuring voice. Avoid forcing the discussion. Remind children it is natural and acceptable to show emotion when someone we love dies. If you are worried about how your child is doing, please do not hesitate to call our school. We are here to support your students through this. Sincerely, Hope Verana.
Again, that recording from Springdale Elementary School, where Faye was a first grade student. Obviously, this is a difficult conversation for those parents to have with those kids tonight. Yeah. But as we just heard in that recording, use the language that is appropriate for your child. Be honest with your kids about this and help them understand that whatever emotion that they're having, it's okay. I think it's very important that the parents who receive that message understand that they also have help from the school in helping their child to deal with this, because as adults we can't even find the right words as journalists to talk to those of you at home about what happened.
Her school, Springdale Elementary, dismissing right about now. In about 20 minutes or so, the school bus that Faye Marie Swetlik rode home will be arriving at that Colonial Heights neighborhood. And the children, no doubt, will be getting this information from parents this afternoon. And it's going to be a very tough conversation. How do you tell little children, little 5, 6, 7-year-old kids, that their friend has been murdered and that her body was found this afternoon after holding out hope for almost 3 days now that she would be found? Holding out hope.
There have been prayer vigils. The children have been talking about it in school. Everything up until within the last 27 minutes when we got the update was, we're going to bring Faye home safely.
Right.
And so, yes, it is going to be hard for everyone involved over the next several days. But we still don't understand what happened to Faye. All we know is that her body was found. We know that a deceased male was also found in that neighborhood, the Churchill Heights neighborhood. The director of the Cayce Department of Public Safety not taking any questions from the media, but telling us that it was important for him to come forward and let the community know as soon as they found out what happened to Faye. No arrests have been made, and he also went on to say there is no danger to the community.
There is a lot of law enforcement presence in that area today, not only for this investigation, but a moment ago when we said, I think a trooper just rode by, Vice President Mike Pence is in town today, and that trooper was part of making sure his motorcade got back to Columbia Metro A-OK. So you're probably, if you live out in the Colonial Heights area near the airport, you're seeing two sets of activity. Obviously, you're seeing what's happening at this neighborhood as we're looking live now, but you're also seeing law enforcement officers up and down the highway leading to the airport as they're doing their jobs to make sure that the Vice President gets back to Columbia Metro and heads back to D.C. okay.
It seems like over the last 3 days we have been consumed with this story, but there are some people who may just be hearing about it for the first time, and so because of that we want to look back at the timeline.
On Monday, officers say Faye took the bus home from school. Investigators believe she went outside to play in her yard on Londonberry Lane in the Churchill Heights neighborhood. She was last seen by her family about 3:45 p.m. Faye's family called the police and said she was missing. That happened around 5 Monday evening. 30 to 45 minutes later, more than 50 law enforcement personnel were on the ground searching. They started knocking on doors in the area, stopping anyone coming in or out of the neighborhood, and asking everyone in the area to check all security cameras. Monday night, community members stepped in to help with the search. Tuesday morning, local law enforcement agencies updated the public on the case. A hotline number was created. The department asked anyone with tips or information about Faye to call. At this point, more than 200 law enforcement investigators participated in actively searching for Faye. The search radius expanded and help from neighboring cities was brought in. Faye has been entered into the FBI's National Crime Information Center database. As of right now, law enforcement says the case does not currently meet the qualifications for an Amber Alert.
And again, that was a story that we presented earlier in this week with the timeline, obviously because of the Amber Alert information at the end of that story. But again, this started right around 3:45 when she was last seen on Monday, and it ends today on a very tragic, sad note. A homicide investigation now as the body of Faye Marie Swetlik is found earlier today.
After talking to so many people in the community, we've heard from them that they've opened their doors and allowed law enforcement in. I remember one interview with a resident. She said they checked my dryer, they checked my dishwasher, they went through my closets, and I was okay with it. Obviously, this is not the ending to the story anybody was hoping for.
No, it's not.
We're going to continue our team coverage. Jacob Reynolds is standing by now with more on how the community, the neighborhood, starts to begin to feel some closure in this case. I feel like it's even too soon for us to say the word closure, Jacob.
Yeah, it'll be definitely tough. It's absorbed this neighborhood's entire life. I mean, it's been closed since yesterday morning. We've been across the street at a business, an auto repair shop, and they've been very gracious to us, understanding why all the media is there, standing there. And I mean, everywhere you go, it's the talk of the town. Just, you know, you get out of your car, out of your vehicle, or you're walking to these areas, and people see the logo or they see the News 19 or whatever, and they ask you, oh, hey, any updates yet? Do you know anything? And for so long of this week, we've had to tell them that we don't. And even after this morning, we thought, you know, it was, like I said, just going to be, you never want to say normal, but another day of searching of what they had been doing. And then, of course, when we heard there would be a 1 p.m. press conference, you have that sinking feeling because they just had one. You wonder what's going to happen. But, you know, this was the talk of the neighborhood. And Darcy, to your point, we had talked to a resident on Tuesday who told us, you know, they came, you know, knocking on his door the Monday night of. Then they came back Tuesday, and he had kind of the same reaction to the woman you were referencing. Just, you know, yes, come in, look everywhere. They looked in his pantries. They looked in his mother's room because she's got some medical issues. They looked in there. They looked in closets. They looked in, you know, trash bins outside the house. They looked all over that property. And that was kind of what we were hearing from all over. Just on Tuesday alone, I saw FBI agents along with local law enforcement going up to doors and knocking and canvassing, and everyone had a clipboard and they were asking questions. And it has been incredible to see the law enforcement response to this case, just the in and out of, you know, law enforcement agents going into this neighborhood, bringing equipment, those four-wheelers that we saw. The helicopter was up and down Tuesday and Wednesday. I had not seen it out at the scene today. I was only there briefly because of the press conferences we had here at the church, which is a few streets over. But, you know, the search had really taken over everyone in that community's lives because they had closed those exits. They were limiting access. This morning at 10:45 in that press conference, they told us that that neighborhood would remain closed as long as they needed it to because they wanted to collect that evidence. They wanted to have unrestricted access for law enforcement, and they did not want the citizens and the public getting in the way. That's the same reason they were not letting citizens help search. You know, we had been told a few times by a few different folks who had come down to volunteer that they were getting turned away, you know, told to use the tip line, to put up flyers, things like that, but that law enforcement did not want them impeding on their ability to search, you know, kind of the correct way because of terrain, the tools, the way you track evidence, you know, all of those things. You know, you kind of need experts on that is what they were telling us, and that's why they were telling these volunteers that they appreciated it, but they did not need that help in that way. And the community's been a help in terms of surveillance footage. I mean, they've been asking for these Ring video doorbells and other security camera footage to come into that tip line, to share it with law enforcement. The cars that we saw that they were searching for last night and this morning, that surveillance video was taken across the street from the neighborhood. So I think they've been very reliant and very thankful to this community for those tips, for that video, for all the help they've given. They thank the public this morning for helping identify the people in that SUV, and they were still looking for the people in that car. It's unclear if that's related to what's going on now, but it will be definitely a change of pace to go from law enforcement knocking on every door and trying to figure out to what's going on to now, unfortunately they found Faye Swetlik's body, and we now know there's a deceased man somehow connected, or at least in the same neighborhood, that they're investigating that as well. And we'll just have to see, what happens and when this neighborhood reopens, when that investigation, at least on the ground level in that neighborhood, is complete.
Jacob, throughout the course of this investigation, we've been hearing from authorities that they believe this was not an abduction case. There was no need for an Amber Alert to be issued in this case, that the child had not been abducted. But now we're hearing today that she's been murdered, a homicide victim. And right now they're telling us there's no danger to the community. So there's going to be a lot of questions perhaps in the days ahead about why did they think there was no abduction? Why the need for no Amber Alert in this case?
Yeah, that was a question that went to Director Snellgrove on Tuesday about, was there evidence of an abduction? Now, he said there was not evidence of an abduction. They've been a little more careful with the language of saying there wasn't an abduction. He just said at that press conference Tuesday, if I'm remembering that quote correctly, that there was no evidence of an abduction. But it was something that, we had questions about. It was asked yesterday at a press conference, was that search area expanding? And they said it was starting yesterday. And no Amber Alert. They've explained the reasons they haven't had that. There's direct federal guidelines with how you issue an Amber Alert. So that was kind of how it was explained to media and to the public as to why they were not offering that. But Director Snellgrove did announce today that, of course, when they found, Faye's body, they did find another deceased male body, and that investigation was ongoing, and that this has been ruled a homicide. So, of course, we'll all have questions that need to be answered as this investigation continues. But, I don't think it would be fair for me or anyone else to speculate when you've got a family and a community very much hurt right now. And I think you heard that in Director Snellgrove's voice. So when law enforcement in a timely manner provide that information to us, we will provide it to you in the most accurate and quickest way that we know how. But, I think there are a lot of questions, and just like everyone else, we will have to wait until, they determine it's appropriate to start answering them.
With these kind of stories, Jacob, we always have to be very careful not to speculate, not to draw conclusions, not to draw parallels. But one thing stood out to me outside of the fact that Director Snellgrove didn't take any questions. He also did not push the tip line. This is the first press conference we've had in several days where they did not mention anything about the tip line.
Yeah, I mean, no tip line, no call for any more video. That was kind of the overreaching theme of the last few press conferences was really pushing that tip line, getting that home security footage, especially in that area from 2 to 5. And you're right, Darcy, we did not, hear any of that in this afternoon's press conference. And that's what makes the one at 10:45 so striking, is how, they were still saying up to then it was a search. And then, just about an hour and a half later, they announced the one at 1, and then right at 2, we heard the update that, her body was found and that it's now a homicide investigation. So we'll just have to see where this goes, but you're right in terms that they did not give out that tip line number again, and it seems at the moment they are not asking for any more video from the public.
Which leaves just a lot of questions unanswered today, Jacob. Thank you for your time this afternoon. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions here. And a lot of people, as we mentioned about a half hour ago, they're going to start putting 2 and 2 together here. And they're going to make assumptions, and they're going to say, well, this happened and this happened. I've already been on social media, and I already see people on there saying, well, this happened and this happened. I saw somebody say that she was found a certain place. We didn't even hear that
Right.
from the director today. So until we get these answers that everybody wants, there's going to be a lot of speculation. There's going to be a lot of rumors, a lot of misreporting, unfortunately, on behalf of some people around here, not here at News 19, about what happened. Here's what we know. We know that Faye is dead. We know she is a homicide victim. We know that a man's body was also found. No arrests have been made. We know there is no danger to the community. They did not ask for any more information on the tip line. So it's easy to take all of that information and start coming to some sort of conclusion yourself.
The other thing we know, JR, is that her family has got to be devastated.
Absolutely.
We heard from Faye's grandmother, and for those of you who have not been following this story over the last several days, let's take a minute and listen to what she had to say to us.
I want my baby back. We gotta find her. We're worried, of course, very distraught, but we're only thinking positive thoughts. We have to keep thinking that they're gonna find her. Yes. We're just waiting on them to do it.
That was a grandmother a couple of nights ago when we caught up with her after a vigil that was held at Trinity Baptist. She didn't really want to go on TV, but she did want to say something.
Right.
So that's why you never saw her face there, holding out hope.
The other thing that we've noticed over the last several days is at these press conferences, we know of at least one time when Faye's family was there at the press conference, but they did not want to go on camera as well. We're not drawing any parallels. We're not drawing any conclusions. They have the absolute right not to speak on camera. I can't even put myself in their shoes. There's just no way to make sense of this. But it's always very interesting when we don't hear directly from the parents. One thing we heard very early in the investigation, however, though, is that we learned from law enforcement that the parents were cooperating in the investigation. We heard that several times. And you look at that sweet little face and those blue eyes and that strawberry blonde hair and that smile, you know, as a grandparent, JR, as a parent, we've seen that look of joy on our own children's faces.
It's a tough day.
It's hard.
This is a tough day for parents and grandparents all across the area who have been following this story because, you know, we've all have our own kids and our own grandkids. And it's like the community wrapped their arms around little Faye during these last 3 days. And Faye became, in some sense, everybody's child.
She became everybody's child. We heard that from so many of the people who we interviewed. I remember one guy saying, I have an 8-year-old, I have a 10-year-old who goes to school with Faye. You know, I couldn't imagine what I would feel like and he was one of the people who was out searching. He said, if this was my child, I would want somebody to help me find my child. And so you're right, this little girl became everybody's little girl. Monday afternoon at 3:45 or at 5 o'clock when we first got word that she had disappeared. And just like any child you're related to, or any child you know, we were hoping that she was going to be found safe and that she was going to come home, and this was all going to just be a bad 3 days.
On social media, as we've said, a lot of people are very active right now, and a lot of people on there right now sending thoughts and prayers and their condolences. The ending none of us wanted. God rest your sweet soul, Faye. That's from our own Andrea Mock. Other people on there as well. Sad news today, praying for her family. And this is all over Twitter right now and all over Facebook as people are just letting their thoughts be known following this tragic discovery today. We heard from Director Byron Snellgrove about 40 or so minutes ago. If you were out picking up kids from school, if you're just now getting back in and you're turning your TV set on, we want to play you the brief, and we do mean brief, meeting with the media just about 40 minutes ago. Again, this is the Cayce Public Safety Director, Byron Snellgrove, making the announcement that none of us wanted to hear today, that 6-year-old Faye Marie Swetlik was found dead. Here again is Director Snellgrove.
Since our last briefing this morning, we've had several developments to share with you. It is with extremely heavy hearts that we are announcing that we have found the body that the coroner has identified as Faye Marie Swetlik. We are now treating this case as a homicide. As this community has been working hard to find Faye and bring her home safely, we wanted you to know as soon as possible. At this time, no arrests have been made. You need to know that this is a fluid investigation and that we are working diligently on it. We also need to inform you that during the course of our investigation, a deceased male was located in the Churchill Heights neighborhood. That investigation has just begun. At this time, we feel there is no danger to the community. We will continue to provide more information as it becomes available.
Again, that was Director Byron Snellgrove with the Cayce Public Safety Department about 40 minutes or so ago, not taking any questions from the news media following those comments, which has just led to even more questions from people in the community and from us here at Newsnight.
So here's what I will say, as he did not take any questions. He said at the very beginning of the press conference, I wanted to tell you guys as soon as I found out.
Right.
So that leads us to believe there's probably not much information that he can release right now. But we're hoping that there will be more information soon, because this is a story that has not only impacted Faye's community, but the entire country. There are people all over the country who are now on social media tweeting about this sweet child.
Right about now, the school bus from Springdale Elementary would be going into the Colonial Heights neighborhood. Right around now it would be. Nick Jones is outside that neighborhood this afternoon. And Nick, I know at one time traffic was blocked going into the neighborhood and going out. Right now it's just blocked going in still, is that right?
That's right, JR. The traffic is still blocked in from being able to get inside that neighborhood. And a little bit ago, nobody was able to travel on Airport Boulevard because of Vice President Mike Pence was coming through to get to the airport. But still, as people, get off work, the road's been cleared. People coming through Airport Boulevard, they're still not allowing folks to enter through the neighborhood. As you can see a little bit further up the road, they have police cars for Cayce Department of Public Safety. They have it blocked off, and Director Snellgrove did mention that obviously they're still investigating. There's still a lot of things they got to figure out. So right now, they're still not allowing folks to go inside the Churchill Heights neighborhood. But we've talked to some people that's been walking around about here off Airport Boulevard, and everybody's just heartbroken that the news came out that Faye Swetlik her body was found. I've been talking with many people here the last couple of days. Every single person I talked to here in Cayce and Springdale and West Columbia were praying for a safe return. Everybody had something good to say about Faye that knew her. I talked to one lady yesterday here at one of the grooming businesses here a little off Platte Springs Road. She was talking about how Faye came out with her grandmother to help her find a dog that she lost over a year ago. They spent 2 weeks trying to find the dog, and Faye came out there because she loves dogs and she just wanted to be out there and do her part and help. So a lot of people are going to social media right now talking about how heartbroken they are that this is what's come of this situation, and it's just it's heartbreaking here in this community. It's a tight-knit community here in Cayce and Springdale and West Columbia. Everybody cares about their neighbor and will do anything to help. We've seen businesses around the area making sure they're having the signs up, trying to help find Faye. So it's a very tough loss for this area, and it's going to be long coming days moving forward.
Yeah, Nick, I know you have been canvassing that whole area, not just the actual neighborhood, but businesses, homeowners. You've been going around there the last couple of days, and people have just really, really been affected by this from the get-go, and they all feel like they have a close connection to this case. Again, as Darcy and I mentioned a moment ago, over the course of the last 3 days or so, Faye has just become everyone's child, it seems, in the community in efforts to find her and get her home safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was definitely a community effort. People wanted to do whatever they could to help out in this situation. Of course, law enforcement was asking folks for not to come into the neighborhood, but other people wanted to do something. They said they had to do something, so they were making flyers to put out in the area just to make people more aware, or even to just look out and search in other areas. As we've seen, our own Gina Kurzina was following crews or people that just were searching around places they know of in Cayce, and as you mentioned, JR, like you said, a lot of people in the community were feeling that Faye was like their own daughter. And I talked to one business owner yesterday. She doesn't have a daughter, but she knows how it affected her own mom. She was talking to her mom about the situation, how heartbroken she is. So it's something that everybody can kind of relate to, and it's definitely a hard loss here in the city of Cayce.
Nick Jones, thank you so much. One thing we've realized in situations like this is that people often go to social media to express their condolences, and it becomes a community where people start to give each other comfort.
Yeah.
USC women's basketball coach Dawn Staley just tweeted out within the last 5 minutes, "Our community is devastated to hear about the death of 6-year-old Faye Swetlik. We prayed for a different outcome, but our hearts are filled with sorrow. This senselessness must stop. Godspeed to her family, friends, and community." And you can see on our screen there where so many other people have started sending in their condolences and just going to social media as a way to express their heartbreak. Forrest Alton, hashtag pray for Faye. Please find this sweet little girl, was a tweet that came out a day or so ago. And that was the outcome we were all hoping for. That's what we were praying for and expecting from the people in the churches who held vigils, to those who had prayer services, and just kept Faye and her family lifted up. This is not how anyone wanted this story to end.
The news is tough for whoever you are today, an adult or a child. And it's the children of Springdale Elementary School that are going to have to deal with this news on a personal level, because a lot of the children there knew Faye, went to school with Faye, played in the playground with Faye, ate lunch with Faye.
Rode on the school bus with Faye.
Exactly. And so these children are going to have a there of questions today.
I think I was 12 years old before I had someone close to me die.
Yeah.
I was in middle school, and there was a student, and she had an ongoing health issue, and she passed away. These are first graders.
That's right.
Who, for the first time, could be dealing with death.
And we know that the school has phoned parents today with a recorded message on how to deal with this with children. We want to play you that message now. Again, this is something that was sent out a short time ago to parents in the Springdale Elementary School family.
We know how hard something like this is, even for adults, to understand. This letter contains some general suggestions about how you can help your child. In general, after something like this, children need to know that they are safe and that their home is safe. Remember, too, that children look to the adults in their lives, watch how they handle grief and loss, and take their cues from you as they approach difficult situations like this. If you do discuss the death, use very simple language and ideas, as death is a very hard concept for young children to grasp. Listed below are a few general strategies you may choose to use to talk with your child about death. Give honest, brief explanations. Avoid over-answering questions. Keep responses at the child's level of understanding. Listen and hug. Use a calm, reassuring voice. Avoid forcing the discussion. Remind children it is natural and acceptable to show emotion when someone we love dies. If you are worried about how your child is doing, please do not hesitate to call our school. We are here to support your students through this. Sincerely, Hope Verana.
Again, that's the message given to parents today for students at Springdale Elementary. Rosemary Belts, our medical reporter, is on set with us now. It's easier said than done when something like this happens. It's a very delicate balance that parents and grandparents have to take when breaking some sort of news like this to children, right?
Absolutely, JR. And, I have to admit, I'm a little shaken up by this too. So, and I think with this situation, the unfortunate situation is that when a child is sick, it's, answering questions when another child is sick. That's one thing. But when there's a situation like this involved, there's going to be a lot of why. And I think the thing to explain to children is that, like you had said, they're very, they're smarter than we think. And with those questions, we really don't know why, to be honest with them, but to listen to them and to assure them that whatever this outcome is, that they are loved. Just assure them that they are loved.
One thing I remember when my mother passed back in 2018, I remember the grief counselor saying to me, which was difficult because when you're mommy, you want to be strong. She said, let them see you cry. Because what happens is you empower them because they already believe mommy or daddy is the strongest person in the world. And so when they see you have that emotion, when they see you cry and then pull it back together, they think, oh, it's okay. It's okay for me to cry. I'll be okay after I cry.
And that's a really great point. And how I believe it was the principal, I'm not quite sure, but had said, they do respond to how we respond, and they follow off of our cues. And so it's healthy to answer any questions without giving them too many of details, but listening, letting them see how you process emotion, I think is just, the best that we can do at this point.
And the best thing we do, is it just to be direct with the children and just say, hey, this is what happened. Let's just be frank about what happened, but do it in a very delicate kind of way?
Absolutely, because kids talk, right? They're going to talk, the playground, school, and things like that. You want them to hear the message from you. And you also want to keep them in a routine. Kids do really well with routine. And so if you, with not given the situation the sort of reverence it's due, but you do want to keep them in somewhat of a routine on track as much as possible, but with being honest at the same time.
And keeping those answers age appropriate.
Yes.
I think it's very important for us as parents because sometimes we look to answer a question that hasn't been asked.
Exactly.
So you have to hear the question and just answer that question because there's going to be a lot of whys. So how do you answer, well, why is Faye dead, Mommy? How do you answer that question? What's the right thing to say?
We don't know. I mean, we don't really know. We don't know what happened. And if you don't know, it's okay to say that you don't know and that we're learning more. And like you said, just answer from where you know without giving too many details because she wasn't sick and we don't understand why and we don't know why these things happen. Again, just reassuring the child that not knowing why, but again, how loved that child is. And like you said, listen, just listen. They might be talking, we know when we're going through things, sometimes we just want someone to listen, not so much say things back. Just listen, and we don't know why.
How do we know if our child's not, Jerry, I'm sorry for interrupting. How do we know if our child's not dealing with this well? What does that look like?
That's a really good question because we don't know because they won't always come. So I think it's as a parent, you know your child, you know if something's bothering your child, and at that time, then maybe prompt some questions, ask how they're feeling about the situation, and again, keep just reassuring them that they're okay. And I think a lot of kids, we were talking in the newsroom, one of the producers here was saying her sister has this fear of being kidnapped. I mean, there are some kids who fear these, so let them just talk about these things. And again, reassuring them. But also why parents, again, we don't understand all of the details of this case, but why parents are the way they are, how we look out for their safety and so forth.
Yeah, kids.
Right?
Young kids, they learn about stranger danger. They learn it in school, they learn it at home, they learn it almost everywhere they go, stranger danger. So in this instance, we have a murder victim here. This little girl was murdered, according to authorities. And so that's a pretty serious subject to broach with 6- and 7-year-old kids.
It is. And also I want to bring up too, because even with little kids have really good instincts, and that's a great point. We don't even know the details if she knew this person, but kids have really good instincts, and pay attention to those instincts. Just like we have adult instincts when something's off, pay attention to kids. just, you know, who they like to be around, who they don't want to be around. You know, just keep an eye out for those, you know, situations. Like you said, strangers aren't always strangers, but.
So what do you say to the child who says, I don't want to go outside and play anymore. I don't want to go to school anymore. I don't want to ride the school bus anymore. How do you, as a parent, help your child answer those questions as to why they're going to be okay? Because this doesn't look okay to them, not at all.
Well, that's a really good question. And maybe, you know, right now, while things are still fresh, acknowledge how they feel in the very beginning. And then after time, maybe reach out to your own doctor. Pediatricians are really equipped to this too, because every child is different. So for me to say, but I think, you know, in the beginning, there is going to be a little bit upset in behavior. But again, try to keep them on routine, you know, see how they, you know, kids are pretty resilient too. You know, maybe after you know, a couple conversations, you know, you guys both have children, you know, dealing with children a couple times, you know, seeing how they interact, and it's okay in the beginning, and then I'm sure they're going to be dealing with this in school as well.
They're smart. They're smart. The worst thing you can do is not tell them the truth, because they will call you on it. So you want to be that parent that they can trust is always going to be honest with them.
No, absolutely. And again, you know, we love them so much, and we have rules for a reason, and this is why. Just kind of reiterating that.
All right. Rose, thank you so very much for your input. Hopefully that helps some parents and some grandparents out there today watching on what you should say and how you should act around your kids with this.
Yeah, be okay with saying, I don't know why. I don't know why this happened to Faye. And understand that your children trust you to be a solid anchor for them in situations like this. And if you cry in front of them, that's okay too, because you're their superhero. And then that helps them understand that this emotion is okay. I can have it and I'll be okay too. It is very difficult to even put into words that this search for Faye has now become a homicide investigation.
Yeah, this is what we know. 3 o'clock here on a Thursday afternoon, and this is what we know so far after nearly 3 days of searching. Authorities found the body today of 6-year-old Faye Marie Swetlik. They say this is a homicide investigation now. No arrests have been made in connection with Faye's death. During the course of the investigation, they also found the body of a deceased man. No details on that man, how he died, if he was connected to Faye's death. None of that released to the media today. The only thing that investigators are telling us right now is there is, they believe, no danger to the community. So you have Faye Marie Swetlik dead, you have someone else dead, you have no arrest, you have a homicide investigation, you have no answers to questions that people have right now, but the authorities are saying, hey, look, we don't believe there's a danger right now out there in this neighborhood.
The neighborhood that the video that you're seeing is right outside of the Churchill Heights neighborhood. This is live. This is our live camera outside of the neighborhood. And as you can see for yourself, there is still a large police presence. At one point today, there was no traffic allowed into that community. And then as this breaking news developed, we realized that there was no traffic allowed in or out of that community. The entire country has paused. If you are on social media and following this story, you can see from one end of the country to the next, people are talking about little Faye Swetlik and how this story is absolutely devastating.
You know, this is our second high-profile missing child case in the last 6 months here in the Midlands. Nevaeh Adams over in Sumter back in August of last year. No Amber Alert issued in that case. And shortly after the search for Nevaeh began, the man responsible, authorities say the man responsible for her death, confessing to the crime. But there was some questions about why an Amber Alert was not issued in Nevaeh Adams' case. And here we are 6 months later with Faye Marie Swetlik. No Amber Alert issued in her disappearance. And I know there's some guidelines, we've gone over those before, certain guidelines that have to be met for an Amber Alert to be issued. But far and away, one of the things I've heard the most, Darcy, since Monday evening, why isn't there an Amber Alert? Why hasn't an alert been issued? We're not hammering that point for you this afternoon. It's simply what a lot of you are talking about on social media. We've all seen the post. We've all seen you make the post on there about issue an Amber Alert now, do it now. Why do we have the Amber Alert? Why doesn't this meet the criteria? Somebody issue this Amber Alert. But that wasn't the case here because it did not meet the criteria. But it brings up some questions. In the case of Nevaeh Adams and in the case of Faye Marie Swetlik, the Amber Alert system, is it worth revisiting? Is it worth looking at again and saying, hey, maybe we need to look at this system again. It could perhaps have a flaw or two here or there. We might want to look at it.
And we both have talked about this in the newsroom. And we speak from the emotion of being parents. Right. And thinking if this were my child, I would want every single person possible, every single law enforcement agency searching for my child. But as we watch what people are saying on social media about the Amber Alert not being issued, I personally read a couple of posts that said you're not issuing an Amber Alert, but you're asking us to call in tips. Mm-hmm. So people are confused by why an Amber Alert wasn't issued, but in the same breath, why law enforcement in every press conference pushed for the community's help and involvement in finding Faye. Right. In times like this, people have no answers. And for so many people, the only thing they can do is pray. Frontline Biker Church last night said that they were going to hold a vigil for Faye's safe return today. Mm-hmm. We now know that Faye's body has been found. But Frontline Biker Church has called the News 19 Information Center and let us know that tonight they will go on with that vigil.
You know, would an Amber Alert had changed the outcome of this disappearance? We can't say that. But again, we're only relaying what we're hearing our viewers talk about on Facebook and on Twitter. They've got questions, we've got questions, and is there a perfect answer? We don't know that either, but it's certainly something that could be up for discussion.
If you are lost for words, if you are looking for comfort, if you are looking for someone to talk to tonight, again, Frontline Biker Church is still holding that vigil. Let's listen in.
At Frontline Biker Church in Kershaw, members rehearsed before Wednesday night service. Thursday, church members will head down the road to pray for a stranger.
I have a heart for children, and God spoke to me. God told me, we need to pray for this child.
Pastor Cotton says when he heard the news about 6-year-old Faye Swetlik, it felt personal.
I have lots of grandchildren. We have lots of kids here, and it very well could have been one of ours, man.
So he decided to host a prayer vigil Thursday night, and he's trying to get more churches to join.
We're also going to pray for all the other missing children as well. You could probably tell by now we're not your average church, but we have a big compassion for the lost. We have a big compassion for the homeless, the needy. It don't matter. We don't have to know them. We don't need to know them. It doesn't matter that we don't know them because God knows all.
They'll also pray for the families involved in a case that's front and center, not just in the Midlands, but across the nation.
We don't do it for publicity. We don't do it to be seen. We're not doing it so this family will like us. We're doing it so this family can find peace and comfort in this time of trial.
Again, this was a story we aired last night on News 19. It aired earlier today as well. The church is going to move forward with their service tonight. And I would suspect, Darcy, that over the next hour or two, we'll probably hear of things here in the immediate area. I know that's about an hour away. We thank them for what they're doing. But I suspect we're going to probably hear of something closer to home here if people can't make that trip to Kershaw.
You know, here in the Midlands, we cover 11 counties. I would not be surprised to find out that something is happening close to you because, again, Faye's story impacted the entire country. We are still searching for answers. News 19's Jacob Reynolds has been at just about every press conference that's been held by the Cayce Department of Public Safety over the last several days. And Jacob, we're hearing that you may have some new information.
That's right, Darcy. We did talk to Cayce Department of Public Safety, and they actually are still asking for tips and video. Still use that tip line at 803-205-4444. Cayce Department of Public Safety still asking for the public's help in bringing in any tips, and they are still asking for video. That is an important clarification they made with me a little bit a while ago over the phone. That tip line once again, 803-205-4444. And I know a lot of questions still being asked about what exactly was found. We know law enforcement found the body of 6-year-old Faye Swetlik. We also know they found the body of a deceased male. And I do have some updated information here from the Twitter account of Lexington County Sheriff PIO Adam Myrick. He said in a tweet, quote, Snell Grove says a deceased male was also found near Faye's body. That investigation is in its early stages, end quote. And on Twitter, he also clarified that Faye's body was found also in that neighborhood. So we do have a little bit of clarity on that. Adam Myrick saying both of those bodies found in that neighborhood, and in language he used in a tweet, he was saying those bodies were found near each other. That is a quote, that word is a quote from his Twitter profile. So once again, just reiterating, Cayce Department of Public Safety still asking for tips to come in, 803-205-4444. We can't give that number enough, and they still are asking for video, even as early as this morning. They were telling us those tips and that video has been very helpful, and they said using that tip line is important instead of calling any of these other numbers, because they do have a specialized kind of process for bringing those tips in and giving them directly to investigators and getting those leads and that information where it needs to be very quickly, while also keeping a record of all those tips that they come in and where they're coming from. So we do want to keep giving you that number. It's 803-205-4444. They are still asking for that information, still asking for video. And we still don't have a lot of answers to our questions on what exactly was found here, but we do know from Lexington County Sheriff's Office Twitter account, the Public Information Officer Adam Myrick, that those bodies were found near each other in the neighborhood. Darcy.
Jacob, thank you so much for that update. It does not make it any easier to understand, but I think it may answer a few more questions for our viewers who may just now be joining us. Again, Adam Myrick, the Public Information Officer for Lexington County, and I'm just going to read his tweet verbatim. Snell Grove, the director of Director for the Cayce Department of Public Safety, says a deceased male was also found near Faye's body. That investigation is in its early stages, and as I said just moments ago, I still can't wrap my mind around the fact that we are no longer searching for this child, and that her name, a 6-year-old's name, is now attached to a homicide investigation.
The news breaking about an hour and 10 minutes ago, Darcy, that she was found dead, the man was found dead, no arrest, no danger to the community. And right now we're not getting any answers to a lot of questions that a lot of us have. What we're going to do is we are going to focus on trying to get more answers this afternoon. We have our team of reporters in the field. We are going to be making some phone calls as well. We're going to try and get more information for you throughout the afternoon. So when you join us at Friends at 5, perhaps we can have more details about what happened here to present to you. Because a lot of people, Darce, a lot of people have been very attached to this story. They have questions and they want the answers, and we're going to do the best we can to find those answers for them.
And we're going to do the best we can to help you talk to your kids about this. You can't look at that sweet little girl's face and not just be heartbroken over the fact that something terrible happened to her. And so, in trying to answer those questions for your kids, we'll be working through this with you. And as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the Frontline Biker Church is still holding their vigil. We encourage you to go to social media if you or your church is planning something to help the folks in your community, because it's not just about the Churchill neighborhood anymore. It's about everybody who watched this story and emotionally became invested in it. If your church or if your community is doing something, a vigil, a prayer service, something to remember Faye by, we encourage you to post that on our social media accounts. You can also send us text at 803-776-9508, 803-776-9508, and let us know about what's happening in your area. We have so many people who call WLTX their home for news.
Right.
And included in that are doctors, pediatricians, and nurses and counselors. And if you're online and you're watching this and you're seeing someone who's having a difficult time dealing with it, and you're a trained medical professional who knows how to deal with these type of situations, we encourage you to use social media for good and say something to someone that could help them today.
All right, with that said, again, we're going to continue to gather more information. As always, you can go to our website, WLTX.com, go to the WLTX app. In the meantime, we will be